All right, guys, it's that time of the month again. Super excited for tonight's live stream. We have a super awesome guest. You may have seen him. His name is Joe Coraggio, and I'm sure I already messed up his last name because I'm terrible at it. But anyways, we have a lot going on, so let's get a couple of just housekeeping things out of the way. I've got my list over here. It's really, really short. First off, I've been missing a lot of videos, and I wanted to apologize for that. And I may not have been missing them, but I haven't been putting out the quality videos that I typically like to do with the thought and things that go behind them. Been a lot of construction going on here at the house, and it is done except for paint. And if you've watched the video where we created the wall that's behind me, you'll know that I don't do paint, and my wife does. So she'll be getting on that soon, and for the most part, everything's clean. We had to dust everything, but this room was full, like up to here with furniture and everything else that was in the rest of the house. So excited that it's done because we have some awesome videos that are coming. We're going to be redoing our talking to air traffic control video, making it even better. We're going to be making a how to pick a flight school video. And I know that I've been saying that one's coming, but it has been a huge undertaking, way bigger than I ever thought it was going to be, just because there's so much information that you guys need to have before you invest a ton of money into your education. And we're starting a new series. I did that little vlog thing inside of the airplane, and I asked you guys, hey, last year we wanted to do the video with my wife and how to learn to fly an airplane series, and that just wasn't working out just because of her schedule. And then I said, hey, do you guys want me to go get my instrument rating and do that same series with an instrument? And you guys chimed in and said yes. So reluctantly, well, I guess not reluctantly because I get to fly an airplane, but the studying that's involved, that's the reluctant part. I don't want to commit that much time, but I'm going to. We are going to go get the instrument rating. I'm going to study, take the test, and start this thing. I'm looking to start it early June. I'm very excited about it. I want to improve my flying skills and the technical stuff. It's fun for me to learn how to do those things. So you're going to be seeing a lot of me at 75600 and learning alongside. And we're going to make it fun. Instrument ratings can be boring because a lot of it is just memorizing information and things and trying to be as precise as you can. But we're going to make it fun. I promise that. So very, very excited for that. But I think that's all the housekeeping stuff that we have going on. Everything else I've kind of talked about inside of past videos. There's not a lot more going on outside of that construction. So we're going to get on with the stream. We're going to invite Joe to come sit with us. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about him first. I met Joe through an acquaintance when he was, we were doing some projects together, and I met Joe, and he has an amazing plane. And it's the most fastest plane I've ever seen sitting on the ground. And it's also fast inside of the air, but it is slick, it is sleek, and we'll show it to you later because it is a race plane. That's right. Joe is a Reno air racer. And he raced some other stuff too, which he'll talk to us about tonight. But I think it's just super exciting, like just the idea of flying low and fast, because everyone says low and slow, but low and fast. I've been a big fan of the Red Bull Air Race Series, and hopefully I'm going to make it to the Reno races this year. So without further ado, we're going to invite Joe to come sit with us. But secondary to that, I forgot to mention this because I'm so excited about the racing. Joe also builds airplanes. Like he's spent 8.5 years building his own airplane from scratch. So we're going to talk about that too. Joe, come on in here.
Thanks, Carl.
Yeah. I know it's weird that he's just sitting right over there, but anyways, Joe, again, thank you. Thank you so much for coming and joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, they want to know a little bit more.
Well, I started flying when I was 12. I got a airplane ride from a distant relative. We got Kevin here, too.
My dog, Kevin, he's very excited when people come over.
I started flying when I was 12. I got an airplane ride from a distant relative of mine, actually not too far away from here down in Tucson.
Oh.
And ever since then, I've been interested in airplanes. So I've been flying for 25 years now. I fly for a living. I fly for a major airline, flying the Airbus 320 series of airplanes. Been flying for the airlines for just over 15 years now. I've been a flight instructor for almost 20 years now, and then fly formation, racing, a little bit of aerobatics, experimental airplanes, cross-country racing, Reno. Pretty much anything that is aviation, I'm interested in it.
Wow, that's quite an impressive resume of just, here's what I've done with my life for the last 15 years.
It's been a lot of fun. I've been pretty lucky to be able to participate in all those different things. So.
Yeah, no. I feel like any one of us that is able to participate in aviation, it's a blessing of sorts.
Absolutely,
so it's very, very exciting. So now that you've introduced yourself, let's say hi to a couple of people, and I'm going to bury my head because this is where the screen is, and the writing is really small. But wanted to say hi to Dion, who is here again. Thank you for showing up. He's like on the other side of the world.
Oh yeah? Where's Dion from?
I can't remember now.
See, here I'm putting you on the spot.
I know it happens. Everyone else is telling us where they're from, though. So let's say hi to Tango. He is from Cairo, Egypt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's the other side of the world, too.
Yep. We also have Brian Rhodes. He is in Dallas, Texas. We have Jared. Jared, I'm going to murder your last name. I'm not going to try. But thank you for coming from Dallas, Fort Worth. A little less traveling from there than, Cairo.
That's right.
And Steve, I know Steve is up in Cottonwood, so thanks for coming and joining us tonight, Steve. And Ireland, Dion's from Ireland.
Wow.
Yes, we have a worldwide audience, which is kind of exciting because aviation is a worldwide thing.
Absolutely is.
So it's very different in other parts of the world, though. Which is also why we have so many people come and train in the United States. Right. So very, very exciting. So, all right, guys, we're going to dig into some of our top questions here. And like I said, I feel so bad because I told Joe, we want to talk about building airplanes as well, and we really want to, but I'm very excited about the racing. So that's the first question I'm going to ask you about. And just because this is what's on my mind, and I'm sure it's on everybody else's, how do you get into racing? How does it start?
Well, for airplane racing, there's a couple of different kinds of racing you can do. There's cross-country air racing, which is pretty easy to get involved in. Mm-hmm. Anybody can do it. Yeah. There's races like the AirVenture Cup and the Sport Air Racing League, and if anybody wants to go out and do it, all you need is some avgas and an airplane, and you can go out and race. Nice. We've had student pilots, recreational pilots, all the way up to astronauts race in races like that. Mm-hmm. It's a fun way to get involved. That's I think Sarl's Sport Air Racing League's motto is racing for the rest of us. It's a pretty inexpensive way of getting involved. So I've been doing that ever since 1998. Participating in the AirVenture Cup and helping organize that race. And then the other one that I've been doing now, I've done it once, is the Reno Air Races. I was a rookie in 2019. Unfortunately, in 2020, we all know what happened and we didn't have the races. Yeah. So lost a little bit of momentum there. But getting involved in Reno is a pretty substantial undertaking. There are multiple different classes that we have at the Reno Air Races. The one that I race in is the sport class, which is for any experimental airplane less than 1,000 cubic inches of displacement for the engine,
which is quite a bit. Actually.
That's a big engine. Yep. Yeah. My Lancer Legacy has 550 cubic inches, so it's quite a bit under the limit. So, then we also have biplanes. We have T6s. We have Formula One. I'm trying to think what else. Jet. We added Stoldrag this year in 2019 to the Reno Air Races. So there are all kinds of different classes that you can get involved in. Reno Air Racing is what they call closed course air racing. There's 8 of us on the race course at the same time.
Well, wait. At the same time?
At the same time.
No, because I've been to the Red Bull Air Races and it's one person on the track at once,
No, this is 8 airplanes on the race course at the same time, flying non-cooperative formation, trying to be the first one to cross home pylon after the end of the race.
Wow. So there's a lot of safety involved with it as well.
Very much so. Yeah.
So you have to be hyper aware of what's going on around you.
Very much so. And that's why it takes so much preparation and time and training in order to get involved in the Reno Air Races.
Well, tell us about that. How does you want to get inside of that? Is there specific requirements, flight hours, or certain types of flying you have to do?
Yep, there are. So the different classes have different requirements. For the sport class, what they require is for you to be proficient in formation flying. So that means either you have a military formation flying background, or one of the other organizations, FAST or FFI, are both FAA-sanctioned organizations that do formation training. Or last way...
I want to get into pretty badly.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. And the other way that you can prove formation competency is by flying with either a sport class lead or check pilot and demonstrate that you're safe to solo in a 4-ship formation with all the maneuvers.
4-ship?
Correct.
Okay, carry on.
With all the maneuvers that are required in order to safely get into the formation, get out of the formation, do emergency procedures, and fly around the race course.
Wow.
So that's what I did, is I flew with a group of people that are local to the Phoenix area. And
I
probably,
think we have some pictures of that.
I think so too. Probably have spent a good 100 hours of formation flying with the group here in Phoenix, working on generating some of those skills as well as honing them, and then also getting other people involved too. Right now we've been working with a gentleman that we just soloed in a 4-ship formation for our own purposes here, and that has qualified Marv to be able to go to Pylon Racing School in June.
Okay, so there's also like you said Pylon Racing School, so there's education as well that you'd have to take to get into like the Reno racing type stuff.
Correct.
Okay.
So any rookie that has not raced before is required to go through Pylon Racing School, which is depending on the class, it's either a 3 or a 7-day event. For sport class, we have you come and do what we call formation warm-up first, and you go out and practice the formation. Okay. And that's 2.5 days. Then there's a day of ground school. And then after that, there's 2.5 days worth of flying on the course and demonstrating different maneuvers from on the course, escape maneuvers, flying the course, simulated pylon cuts, things of that nature.
That actually, like you're saying, like escape maneuvers, I'm like, wow, I didn't even think about that, but how important. Mm-hmm. And to not just learn the escape maneuvers, but know when to execute them and execute them safely, and to instinctively do it.
Correct. The escape maneuver that I'm referring to isn't necessarily bailing out of the airplane, which some people might think it is. But the escape maneuver is, this is an air show. We have people there. We have spectators, and the safety of the crowd is paramount. And so if you are going to cross over one of the show lines, you're required to escape out of the race course.
Oh, I get it.
And so essentially you have to know where you are on the race course and be able to predict whether or not you're going to breach some of these lines. And if you're going to breach one of those lines, you have to pull off the race course.
That's actually... Wow, I didn't even think about it, but like super, super important. It's like if you're inside of the F1 car racing, you depart the track, they can just get back on, but it sounds like you break away and you're done.
Well, you don't have to be done. You can get back on the race course, but you can imagine this big climb out all the way around the crowd to be able to rejoin.
I see.
You've lost the race.
Avoid
already.
this box. Stay out of here. If
Correct.
You're going to break it, you go around, and it's almost like a penalty.
Yep, very much. It's a big penalty. You'll get a big talking to afterwards too.
That's awesome.
We take that pretty seriously.
Well, I mean, everything you just told us is awesome. I don't think the penalty is awesome, but there's so much there that I didn't even realize. So thank you for answering that question. That was good. So let's dive down here and say hi to a couple more people. One thing I forgot to tell you guys is if you have a question for us, let's see here. You need to, there it is. Use the @ symbol, @FlyWithTheGuys. When you do that, it lights up on our screen. We can see a question that you might be asking, and we can answer it. Like when we just finished that segment, we can look down here. If we see one of those, we're going to read the question. It's a lot easier because I know sometimes you guys will chat with each other. Wanted to say hi to a couple more of you guys, like Jim Pittman from flywithjim.com. Jim was actually my instructor.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, so it's cool that he's doing that. If he's in New Mexico, it sounds like he's out on a trip right now and is bored to tears, which is why he's watching this.
Good layover material.
Material, exactly. We have, let's see here, any questions? Yes, Jared here is just saying that the Lancer Legacy is so fast.
Yeah, and I think that's Jared Latimer from the DFW area. He was actually able to get a ride in the Legacy when I went to the Fort Worth area back in January, and it was kind of funny because we went out flying and took off, and he's a pilot. He's been flying for a while, and in that area, and we took off and leveled off, and he's like, "Where are we?" He didn't realize where we were yet because we were so far away. He wasn't used to the speed of the airplane, which is kind of fun.
And I had that similar experience because Joe took me up inside of his Legacy, and when you're under a Bravo airspace, there's a speed limit, 200 knots.
Yep.
You can't go over that. And I've never been in a plane where it's like, oh, gotta power that back.
Yeah, pull it back to 20 inches so that you don't exceed the speed limit below the Bravo.
It's crazy. So, but that kind of leads us into a question. So I'm going to ask this. And also, we had Dion Ogerman here ask it as well. Oh, he got rid of it. So I don't remember it, but it was similar. What is it like to be in a race? His question was around, like, how fast do you actually go? But what's it like, the feelings, the G-forces, the speed, all those things?
So, first of all, it's a lot of fun. It's highly task saturating. You have a lot going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Legacy is a 300-mile-an-hour airplane.
300.
In a ground speed type setting. When you're going around the course, the average speed is a little bit slower because you have to take into account the turns.
Yeah.
But 300 miles an hour over the ground. In close formation with...
How high off the ground?
The minimum altitude for the race is 50 feet AGL.
300 miles at 50 feet?
50 feet.
And how...
The maximum is 250 feet. So you have to be within that 200-foot window. And the elevation change along the race course is about 175 feet. So you're chasing that the whole time around the course. Or some people will fly a level lap course as well, depending on what their strategy is.
Wow.
So
that's crazy, actually.
It's a lot of fun. It really gives you a sense of speed. Planning the turns and at Reno, it's always super windy and super bumpy. So being able to play those, and the winds may not be the same on all parts of the course because of the topography there, and because you're at 50 feet, you might have a tailwind on one side, but also have a tailwind on another side, or have a headwind or crosswinds and things like that. And you're varying your bank angle and your G loading in order to be able to stay outside the pylons, because you don't want to cut a pylon. That's a significant penalty. But you want to be able to stay as close to them as you possibly can to keep the course as small as possible.
Oh yeah, and that's what you do in auto racing as well. You get the
Right.
corner and cut it just right and increase the speed and stuff. But I mean, just the speed thing. I was just thinking about this. 300 miles an hour. If you guys have ever seen a jet car drag races, that's how fast they go.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's just an incredible amount of speed.
Well, and I'm not the fastest one out there. I'm about middle of the pack in the sport class. So Andy Finley, who's won it the last 2 years, 2018 and 19, his average speeds are over 400 miles an hour.
Wow.
So
okay, all right. That's fast.
It's really fast.
So how does the airplane handle that, though? Those speeds?
You know, the Legacy handles it phenomenally. The Legacy was built as a high-speed cross-country machine, and it's a carbon fiber airframe, so the airplane is really strong and can handle those fast speeds. It's designed for it. The control forces are really nice at those speeds, and it does a wonderful job.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, because I know that my 172, if I exceed like 140, I'm breaking up.
Yeah, you'd rip the wings off.
Yeah, so I definitely don't want to do that.
That's right.
But wow, it sounds incredible. And you guys, Joe has a website that's going to be going live here in just a little bit. He is part of Ramp Rat Racing, and there will be some footage of a race on there, which is pretty cool. So you get to see how low to the ground he's going, how fast they're going, flying around the pylons and stuff like that. So definitely go check that out. It's not on there yet. It's still under construction, but bookmark it for sure, because it's going to be an awesome little video once it's done.
Yeah, it'll be great.
So, all right. I'm going to turn back down over here, look at these questions some of you guys are coming up with. Do they do any formation racing with old warbirds and stuff at Reno?
So the Unlimited class at Reno has mostly warbirds in it, so it's modified or stock P-51s, Sea Furies. In the past, there have been P-38s, all kinds of different warbirds that have raced there. So Strega and Voodoo and some of these really fast airplanes that they've taken, a P-51 and clipped the wings and put a different canopy on and put a different tail on and boosting it and boosting it in ADI and alcohol injection and water injection and just go as fast as they can.
Well, and that leads me to another question/thought. These are all experimental aircraft at this point, correct?
Well, yeah, the ones that we modify are.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I know inside of the car world, you can modify something and nobody cares. Right. But there comes a point where, it's only legal on the on the racetrack, but in the airplane world, everything's just a little bit different.
Right.
It's experimental only if you're modifying, right?
Essentially, I mean, there are ways to do modifications to certified airplanes. That's kind of out of the scope of what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
But
It was just a
through
thought.
STCs and things like that. But the majority of them are either experimental or experimental exhibition or limited airworthiness, things like that expressly allow this kind of modification.
So not much certified aircraft doing flights and things during the races.
Right.
Okay. No, that's good to know. I didn't know that at all. So.
At least at Reno, that's one of the beauties of cross-country air racing is you can take your 172 and be the fastest 172 out there and pick the right altitudes and put the right STCs on the airplane in order to be one of the fastest 172s in a cross-country race.
No, I need an LS to do that. Now I'm crossing the
There you go.
airplane and car world. Put
That's
an
right.
LS in everything. So, all right. Here's a fun question from Movie Watcher 123. He's been in a lot of our live streams. It's been really fun. He asks really good questions. He says, were you nervous at first for your first race?
Well, there's certainly some amount of nerves, but by the time you get to the first race, you've practiced, you've gone through pylon school, you've flown hours of formation with these people that are going to be on the race course with you, so you have a level of trust and instinct as to what they're going to do. So were there some nerves? I'd be lying if I said there wasn't. That's probably not very, something most people would admit. But yes, there are some nerves. But really the only time that you have time to have nerves is on the taxi out. By the time you start pouring the coals to it and you're flying and you're formation flying, you've got so much going on, managing the engine, making sure the engine's happy, making sure that you're flying the proper position on people as you're joining up into position, coming around P-vine, coming down the chute. Hi, Kevin. Yeah, I know. You're excited about coming down the chute too, aren't you? We'll get him going fast enough to be the world's fastest doggy.
Oh, yeah, that'd be fun.
But so, you've got so much going on by the time that you actually initiate the takeoff that you don't have time for that. You're flying the airplane, you're making sure you're fine, you're joining the formation, coming down the chute, line abreast of everybody. And once they say, ladies and gentlemen, you have a race, trying to find your line and fall onto the course as quickly as you can. Otherwise, somebody will beat you to it.
Wow. So it just goes away because there's too much going on.
That's right.
You can't focus on being nervous anymore.
That's right. You become very mission oriented. You kind of triage the tasks at hand, and you take care of the most important things. If you've got a engine monitor alarm going off, well, the most important thing still is not hitting the person next to you. So you're still flying the airplane while you're adjusting things with the engine and things like that. So you're pretty task saturated. There's not a lot of time for nerves.
Cool. Now I'm thinking about you being this Jedi Master Force person racing pods. So just, it's so much going on. And how I remember in the movie they said, most humans can't do it simply because there's so much going on at once. So much speed, so much everything. And so that just made me think of that. But
yeah, it's a lot. It's certainly a lot. But that's what we practice for. That's why we fly a lot.
Awesome. Okay. I'm going to turn back here to some of these questions. We have a lot more coming in, which is awesome. Let's see here. Okay, that's actually a fun question. So there's a level of concern that goes on when you're flying at these speeds. Has there ever been an accident at the Reno Air Races?
Unfortunately, we have had some accidents. They're always sad, and
Go on.
he just wants to be a part of it. That's all.
I know.
He's not camera shy. Unfortunately, yes, we've had some accidents. We've had some incidents that have ended happily. We've had a midair where a couple of years ago where both airplanes made it back.
That's good.
And both pilots made it back. But we've had some where we've lost some people. The Reno Air Racing Association and each of the classes do a really good job of policing what they think is safe with the airplanes.
Okay.
For example, if I make a major modification to the airplane, I have to register that with the Reno Air Racing Association and the sport class. And then my local FSDO for flight testing in a local area, and then give them the conclusion of the flight testing. So this isn't the kind of thing where we just bolt on a really big engine and go out and try it and it worked for somebody else, so it might work for us. It's not, it's not a cavalier attitude towards the modifications. There's a lot of testing, a lot of engineering,
and all in the name of safety.
All in the name of safety.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to get back, and
that's
shake
good.
hands at the end of the race.
And that's really good, and I think that is a very important detail, that you don't just bolt on your turbo and go have fun.
Right.
It's a safe environment. The question that was more specifically asked from I'm Not Listening is, has there ever been a bird strike?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there has. In I think it was 2018, one of the sport class racers had a bird strike in a Super 6, RV Super 6, and the bird went straight through the canopy, right through the center, right through the rear bulkhead.
Oh my gosh.
And it made a heck of a mess. He did a beautiful job flying the airplane. It didn't. I think he got a cut right here from one of the shards of the plexiglass. But he did a beautiful job of flying the airplane. James Stringer in race 49 flew the airplane, got the airplane back on the ground, and the airplane's back flying now, and in the races again. So
wow.
And
geez, I left the fly with the guys thing up here this whole time.
we're required to wear a lot of safety equipment. One of them is a helmet.
Yeah. And I have a picture of you somewhere wearing the helmet. It's awesome. It's all majestic, you getting ready for your race. But that's good.
It does add some cool factor when you get the pictures taken. That's for sure.
It definitely does. So, well, I'm glad that there's all those safety precautions and stuff put into place. I really am, and it's to be expected. Any race is going to make sure that it's as safe as possible. But I'm Not Listening was saying, there are outside factors that just happen.
Yeah, and you can't control those.
Yeah, you can't. And you can't control those sometimes in just normal flying.
That's right.
Not to mention flying at 300 to 400 miles an hour.
Exactly.
So, and because when you're that low, like he was saying, bird strikes, much more possible.
Right. Absolutely it is.
All right. So let's see if there's any more fun questions about racing here. I did want you to tell us a little bit about that picture. Someone's asking a question about flight formation, and you were talking, and I threw this picture up there. What's going on here?
So that is actually a picture of three of us sport class racers. It would be 5'6" George Catalano, 291, and that's Bob, and then myself there in 611. We're out over the South Valley here in Phoenix, Arizona, doing formation training hop. I believe that was during one of our 5-ship formations recently. But generally speaking, especially in the weeks leading up to PRS and in the weeks leading up to Reno, we try and go out at least 2-3 times a month, sometimes much more than that, and we go out for 45 minutes worth of formation and practice all the maneuvers that we're going to need, get ourselves real comfortable being in tight formation with each other.
Okay. And actually, I'm Not Listening asked another really good question. Remember I said he asked good questions?
That's fantastic. It's good to have the participation as well.
Oh, absolutely. I love the participation. They help things roll really nicely. What are the weather minimums for racing?
So it has to be VFR, and usually that's not a problem in Reno for it to be VFR. There have been some times where I've seen it canceled for low clouds and things like that. As far as winds go, that's pretty much up to each of the individual classes. I've seen races happen in as much as 25 and 30 knots of wind. It's up to each individual class as well as each individual pilot as to whether or not they're going to stand down based on that. So when we practice, we kind of rein that wind number in a little bit, but when it's races, that's part of what we have to be prepared to deal with.
What other things could potentially cancel a race outside of weather?
There could be airport fouled because an airplane had an incident, something like that. Mostly it's just weather, though.
Just weather? Okay.
That's what it's mostly been. We have had some, I think it was during PRS where we had something canceled for smoke. Some of the wildfires that were going on in the Sierra Nevadas and things like that. But as long as we can see and safely take off, and the weather isn't bad enough to prevent us from operating safely, we pretty much race.
Race is on.
That's right.
Nice. Okay. Cool. So I've got another fun question for you. Tell us, I want to know more about the Legacy, because you mentioned that we know it's 300 miles an hour. We know that it's carbon fiber. It's a very structural airplane. But tell us a little bit more about it. And I'm going to throw a picture on the screen of it looking fast, standing still with its engine cover off.
There we go. The Lancer Legacy is a kit-built airplane.
Mm-hmm.
There are quite a few of them out there built. I don't even know what the number total is. Mine was, my serial number is 202. But there's quite a few out there flying around. It was designed as a high-speed cross-country machine to take 2 people in bags, over about 1,000 miles as fast as you can go. So when I'm flying cross-country, I can, if I'm going wide open, I can do 240 knots. If I pull it back a little bit to save some gas and extend the range, 220 knots is really, really comfortable. I get a lot of distance out of 220 knot cruise. You can put pretty much anything that you want in the baggage. They're all experimental amateur built, so somebody built them in their garage or their hangar. Mine was built by Alan Raymond, and I'm the 3rd or 4th owner of it.
Okay. It's pretty spectacular. I mean, I like this picture here that we're showing. That's Sedona, which we have the pleasure of having here in Arizona, everyone's bucket list airport.
That's right.
And we have here your Legacy looking fast, and then another plane in the background that we'll talk about, I think, in just a minute. But before we move on to those, we have a couple more questions that have come in. How much fuel do you carry?
So the Legacy holds 68 gallons total, 64 usable.
But when you're flying, like in a race.
Oh, in a race.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
As little as possible. Everybody
That sounds really bad, by the way, but I get it.
So weight is a big deal on the race course, especially for the faster airplanes. At my speed, going around the race course at 300 miles an hour, if I'm flying the race course right, I'm only like 1.6 to 1.8 Gs, depending on what turn I'm on. And so weight for me isn't nearly as much of a factor as it is for like Andy Finley, who's probably 3.5 to 4 Gs at his speed in order to stay on the course.
Yeah.
But people pay many thousands of dollars per pound to get it out of the airplane. And so carrying extra fuel is just, you don't need it. So I carry enough fuel in order to take off, join up, fly the race. And then because I'm new to racing and I'm kind of in the middle of the pack, I carry a little bit of extra. So I'll carry 25 gallons-ish, which will give me enough fuel to also make it over to Reno, Tahoe International, or any of the other divert airports.
Oh, so you do have to carry enough reserve to be able to get somewhere else in case something happens here and you can't land.
Correct. Yeah. You want to. The worst thing in the world would be for there to be some kind of emergency on the airport, and they're dealing with that. And now, because you took so little fuel, you've now created another one. So we're all trying to not be the person that creates that problem. So it's wise to carry enough fuel to make it over to like Reno, Tahoe, or any of the other divert airports, because Reno, Tahoe, I think, is 12-ish miles away, but then the other ones are like 20 miles away. So it's not like they're right there.
So when you're flying and getting ready, because this is all inside of my head now about fuel, so you're coming in formation flying, you're getting ready for the race, and then the announcer says, okay, let's do this. How long does it take you to get ready? Like, are you talking maybe a 15, 20-minute flight before everyone comes in? Or?
So, the entirety of, from startup to shutdown for an entire race flight is about 45 minutes for a 7.5 to 8 minute race.
Okay.
So, it's very well choreographed. The Air Boss has everything set up. The people that are on our ramp, working the sport ramp, do a phenomenal job of making sure that we're all out there, spotted on the ramp at the proper time. We all get in the airplane, start up at the proper time, taxi out as a flight, get down to the end of the runway, and we take off while they're doing other races or other air show acts, depending on what the scenario is. And then we have about a 20-mile circuit to make to be able to join up, get the flight assembled, get everybody on board, go around Peavine Mountain, which is just south of Reno State Airport. And then by the time we come around that mountain, we're heading downhill for the race course, and that's what we call the chute. So then we come down on the chute until we come basically across runway 826. That's where we start the race, and everybody falls onto the race course. We have about a 7 or 8 minute race, depending on how fast people are going. And then once we are done with the race, we pull up off the course up into what we call cool down. We have an opportunity to reset everything, cool the engine down nice and slowly, visually acquire everybody that we're following, get everything in order so that we can go from race mode and going as fast as we can, give ourselves a second to reorganize and regroup and think about landing and what our next task is at hand, cool down, and then join the pattern and land. And all of that ends up being about a 45-minute flight if everything's going well.
Okay. And that all makes sense. I'm like thinking it's like cool down. Everyone, okay, you go north, you go east, you go south.
No, you know, that's actually one of the things that's not intuitive in formation flying is you don't want to scatter everybody all over the place.
Oh, so
right?
you still stay form and you just...
So essentially what we do is we take that racetrack and instead of 50 to 250 feet, we go up to 6,000 and 7,000 feet and we fly that same racetrack. So that everybody knows where to be looking for each other. It's kind of like a traffic pattern, right? When you were learning your private pilot and you went to an uncontrolled airport, you didn't know necessarily where to look. And your flight instructor probably told you, well, they're all flying the same pattern that we're flying, so be looking for them on downwind, base, and final. It's the same kind of concept, except on a race course. So we want to know where to look for people so we can identify other traffic. It keeps us all going in the same direction. Things like that.
Cool. There's so much to this that it's just like, man, I want to just dig in and learn because
there's
so fun.
There's a manual, if you print it out, it's about that thick of all of our SOPs and how we actually conduct the races. And it's very, very, very well thought out.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you one more question here, and then I want to move on to the aircraft building because that's also a very fun part because I don't just love flying airplanes, I love airplanes.
Right.
And so there's a passion there for building. So I definitely want to talk about that. But before we do, there's a big question, like the elephant inside of the room whenever we talk about aviation, and that's how much does it cost? So racing, I'm sure it's painful. How much does it cost? I mean, because the airplane's expensive, but outside of that...
It's painful.
Even more painful.
If it weren't so much fun, it would be really painful. But it is expensive. The beauty of cross-country racing is if you have your own airplane, most insurance companies do not exclude cross-country racing, so it just costs you a little bit of avgas or Jet A if you got a jet, and you go out and have a good time. Reno with the closed course, there's a little bit more risk involved. So I say a little bit more because I think Mom's on.
There's no risk, Mom. It's fine.
So anyway, it's there's a little bit more risk involved, and so things like insurance have gotten insanely expensive, and then also because of how dynamic and how much skill flying like this requires, it is a perishable skill. I spend about 100 hours a year flying the Legacy. At least 80 of that is in formation.
Just to be current inside of it, proficient inside
Correct.
of it. And is that an insurance kind of thing that they like to see?
I'm sure they love seeing that I fly it a lot instead of a little. The insurance company for me doesn't have a minimum hourly requirement that I have to put on. But that's what it takes for me to be comfortable flying in this close formation with everybody else, practicing simulated flameouts and engine failures and things like that. So in addition to your race entry costs, a week at PRS, a week at Reno, hotels, food, insurance, maintenance, fuel, oil, insurance, which is a huge...
You said that twice.
...number.
Is it really expensive?
Yes, it's gotten a lot more expensive this year as well.
I remember I asked him about that once, and he says he's not going to tell us, which that's fine. I want you guys to understand, if you remember Draco, Mike Patey, he had Draco's beautiful plane, and he made a whole video on how he's no longer going to do any type of racing or anything with Draco because it was costing him in insurance $50,000 a year. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's insane. So I can imagine that just... a couple days of racing, how much they're going to charge you because it is. Yeah.
Well, and my insurance cost has the same number of digits. It's not anywhere near that expensive.
Oh, good.
But it has the same number of digits. So that kind of gives you an idea of what it costs. And I burn 16 to 18 gallons an hour depending on how hard I'm pushing it at $5 a gallon. It's an expensive sport. There's no two ways about it. And
okay. So how do you help compensate for that?
So In 2019, we were lucky enough to have a really big sponsor, Bendix King. They're still supporting us, but really at the end of the day, what makes this race work is sponsorship.
Sponsorships.
Most people can't afford to foot the whole bill for multiple years in a row out of their own pocket, so sponsorships really help. We're looking for more sponsors. This year we have Bendix King is still a sponsor. We have Air Capital Insurance. We have R&E Oil Coolers up in Prescott. They do oil cooler service. And then we have Ryan Machine, which is a machine shop that builds custom tools for aviation, like homing case splitting tools,
Nice.
wing bolt wrenches for Beechcraft series of airplanes and things like that. So we have a couple of sponsors that are helping us out with some of our in-kind needs right now. But finding more sponsors really would help make
Always
this
helpful.
season.
Because, I mean, and just like any racing, the sponsorships help, and it helps the sponsors getting their name out and everything,
Right.
but it makes your plane faster. I know the sponsorship doesn't in part make this plane faster because the sticker you put on it actually creates drag a little
Exactly.
bit, but what makes an airplane faster? Money.
That's right.
So-
And without the sponsor stickers, even though it's a little bit of drag, the airplane doesn't go at all. Right?
Without the sponsor, yeah,
it
the
does
airplane
make
doesn't
them
go
faster. I think Andy Finley was the one that told me that. We really appreciate our sponsors and our help. One of the neat things about the sport class is the sport class is extremely innovative. We've gone in the course of, I think the sport class is now in its 22nd year. In 22 years, we've gone from airplanes that would do little more than 250 miles an hour to over 400 miles an hour, all in people's garages and home hangars and things like that, which is a pretty big feat to be able to. It's not quite double the speed, but it's at least another 80%. And anybody who knows anything about aerodynamics, to get 80% faster, that's a monumental undertaking.
Well, just to explain it to people who don't understand, the faster you go, the more air starts acting like a liquid. And if you've ever taken your arm and tried to push it through water,
Yep, that's exactly right.
resistance. And so you need more horsepower to go faster. So, all right, guys. Well, Joe, if any of our viewers wanted to help you in any way, do you have a couple ways that they could?
Yeah, so we have our website set up. You can find us there at info@rampratracing.com. And we have a sponsorship program that we've set up where we have some pretty neat things that we can offer our partners, both in coming to Reno, signage on the airplane, on our website, things like that. And then we also have opportunities to have discussions with people in person and whatnot. So there's a lot of cool things. If you have a business or an individual that would like to get involved in racing, come out and get the VIP experience out at Reno. We'll find a way of making that happen.
Awesome. And I know that your website's under development right now while we're talking about this. So if you're interested, definitely there's contact information. Send him an email and he will get back with you. But I understand how important that is. And so, and I really want to see you succeed in the racing, and I want to come to Reno and cheer you guys on. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's so exciting. It really is.
It's a ton of fun. It's one of the best weeks of the year.
Yeah. One of the reasons I'm so excited, just kind of a side segment here, is I took my son to the 2015 Red Bull Air Races, the last year that they had it, the final race of the season in Las Vegas. And it was absolutely incredible. And I highly recommend, if you have the opportunity to go to an air race, it's exciting. Not just for the races, there's a lot of other things that are going on, a lot of show events and things, and it's just fun if you're an aviation nut like me.
Well, and we also need you guys to come out and see it. We need people to come out and make your trip out to Reno and come watch the air races. There was some concern whether or not after losses from 2020, whether or not they were going to be able to have the races this year, and they are having the races this year, but it depends on people coming through the gate, people coming out to watch it. So if you're looking for something to do in 2021 because you didn't get to go on vacation last year, come out to Reno, support the Reno Air Races, and if you can't quite come out, watch the live streams, and there are ways to also donate to RARA as well to help make sure the races keep going.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we're going to shift gears now. I want to talk about that experimental stuff. And we try to keep these around an hour every single time. And, I feel like we didn't leave any time because we're about 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
So
happens.
that went so fast.
Get me talking about airplanes, I won't stop.
I know that happens to me too. Definitely happened. But before we do that, Nice Guy had a question here, and I wanted to ask it. All right. A couple of just quick ones. High wing or low wing?
Ooh. Low wing.
Low wing, okay. Tricycle or tail dragger?
Tail dragger.
Tail dragger. Ooh, okay. Glass cockpit or steam gauges?
Depends.
It depends.
Glass cockpit for most.
Glass
if
cockpit.
If it's an antique, you got to keep it real.
Got to keep it real. No, those are fun questions. Everyone asks that almost every single live stream.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when I have a guest, they want to know. They're fun questions too.
They are fun questions. The interesting thing is the real answer to most of those questions is I love them all. I love all the airplanes.
Yeah.
But if you give me a choice between a couple, those are the ways I'd go.
Yeah. No, and I totally hear you. Like, yeah. I'm not gonna stop. I'm stopping. Okay. All right, so we're going to shift gears here and start talking about aircraft building, because Joe doesn't just race airplanes, he builds airplanes. And I've seen some of the airplanes that he's built, and they are absolutely incredible. And so the first one that I want to talk about is this guy. Is that you just fooling around in your backyard?
So that was back in 2007 when I first got the project. I picked up my Long Easy as a project that was partially started by Glenn Burmeister in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I was a brand new first officer in a 1900 making $19,000 a year, but wanted to get started in building an airplane. And the Long Easy is the perfect airplane for that because it has a lot of labor, but you can build it $100 at a time.
$100. Yeah, oh, that's true. So, and how long did it take you? I said it already, but how long?
It took 8.5 years.
8.5 years.
And those were years that I was humping it at it. I mean, it was a lot of work. I didn't do it by myself. I did have a bunch of friends that would help and come out to the workshop and help out.
That happens. You start building somewhere and like all these aviation addicts come and help.
Yeah, it's wonderful. That's one of the things that I love about the aviation community is everybody wants to pitch in and help.
And true. Now, and that was a very passionate project, and I'm going to show everyone what it looks like now in the sunset. It's just an epic picture. It's got I think it has a nice paint job on it. Looks very clean, looks fun. I've flown inside of this airplane. It's very different. Tell us a little bit about why you, chose the Long Easy. Is there something about it unique, special that you like?
So the biggest thing that I was looking for when I was looking for my first airplane to build was something fast that could do the AirVenture Cup, because I had been a volunteer for the AirVenture Cup for almost 10 years at that point. So I wanted an airplane I could go out and cross-country race. So even before I had my first airplane or built one, I knew racing was in the future. So I had an eye towards something fast, fun, that could go upside down a little bit. It doesn't do great aerobatics, but it does good aerobatics. I mean, Kyle Fowler does his show in the yellow Long Easy, the Aerosport Long Easy. So it can do aerobatics. It just doesn't do anything that's rudder intensive very well because it's got those itty bitty rudders on the winglets.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah,
pretty tiny. Yeah,
pretty small for what they are. But the Long Easy fit that bill, and it was really the only thing I could afford at that point. $100 at a time when you're just starting your career and just graduated college and have student debt and things like that, you can do it. But I couldn't afford to buy a $1,500 tool kit and a $2,000 kit to start an RV or something like that at that time.
Well, and those kits cost a lot of money too. I mean, you're talking $30,000-$40,000 just for the parts and then the tools, and you're building this airplane for an extended period of time. But to be able to do $100 at a time, I mean, that's great.
Right.
Now, that airplane, is it just plans that you buy and you start building from the plans, or?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a plans built airplane developed by Burt Rutan back in the 70s. You can still find plans from time to time that have a registered serial number back to Burt. Otherwise, there are plans online sometimes that you can find. And then one of the best ways that most people tend to get into a project like that, since it is so labor intensive, is they find a project that somebody started but had to give up on for some reason.
Which reminds me of your current project,
right? Which
is a Long Easy on steroids, in my opinion.
It is.
I'm going to show you guys a picture of this. This is incredible. So this is, like you said, you picked up someone else's project, but tell us a little bit about what this is and why it's so special.
So this airplane it started life as a Defiant derivative aircraft, or DDA. It was the brainchild of Brian Martinez out in California. Brian had been working on this airplane for 23 years when he passed away unexpectedly just over a year ago. But the concept behind this airplane, it's a 4-seat, twin-engine, push-pull, canard-style airplane, originally designed by Burt Rutan, and it was designed to be a safe twin. A lot of multi-engine airplanes are... the joke is, when one engine quits, the other one will take you to the scene of the accident.
Yeah.
Because it has the asymmetrical thrust issue when a single engine fails. In this airplane with centerline thrust, you don't have that. So you lose some horsepower, but you don't have any controllability issues. And that was the impetus behind Burt Rutan designing this airplane.
And that seems like a really safe route to go.
Yeah,
Either that or a single engine with a parachute. But, But I like the idea of that. I love the redundancy.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal airplane for that. Night flying over mountains, things like that. It gives you that extra redundancy that a lot of people are looking for. And then also it's a safe way of having a multi-engine airplane. Mm-hmm. This particular airplane is special in the fact that Brian wanted to take it to the next level. So Burt Rutan designed the Defiant, and Burt Rutan is known very much so for getting an airplane to flight test quickly, and as such, they're always essentially prototypes. They aren't as refined as a finished product might be, and so Burt picks a lot of his construction methodology for ease and quickness to manufacture to get a concept to flight testing so that he can validate whatever they're trying to do. Brian's concept with this is, okay, if Burt then would take the Defiant and take it all the way through to being a finished production machine, what would he do? So Brian went through the effort of lofting the airplane from stem to stern, so everything has nice compound, smooth curves instead of the traditional Rutan slab-sided with rounded corners. It's all lofted and flows for aerodynamics. He did a one-off mold to be able to make it a vacuum bag molded honeycomb core, carbon fiber and fiberglass, depending on where, aircraft. So it is extremely lightweight. And he would build parts over if he didn't like them or they came in too heavy. And all of the little details of everything that he did really took it from a plans built, home built that was essentially a copy of a prototype to what is, in my mind, a pretty good finished product.
And it was definitely a labor of love, I could tell, because I've seen the Defiant and I've seen the detail, the little things here and there that he's done. And I'm like, wow, that took a lot of time. And it is very, very cool. And I've seen all the parts. I've basically seen the plane naked. Let's just say it that way. And it just like you said, the components, everything about it, it's probably one of the reasons that you like doing it. Yep. But I'm going to be selfish here. Oh, that's not it. Where is it? Oh, there it is. I helped work on the Defiant.
Yep, that's right. You helped with mounting the canard, as a matter of fact. So if it flies crooked, it's your fault.
Ah, dang it. Yes, it will be my fault if it flies crooked. I helped put that canard on and make sure that it fit. And however, no, it won't be my fault. I didn't help bolt it in.
Well, that's true. Did we ever bolt it in?
We didn't. We didn't. Oh, did we bolt? I don't know. Did you? Or yes, did you just put the...
No, we did bolt it in. It's going to be a fun airplane. I'm really looking forward to it. We're doing a lot of really neat projects on it right now. And one of the cool things in the kind of the crossover between the racing and the home building, home building helps with modifying the race airplanes to make them go faster. But also now in building the Defiant, there were some things that were undefined and that I didn't have the privilege of meeting Brian, so I didn't know what he was planning. But I wanted to make sure that I did things like the cooling system for both engines. I wanted to do it the best way that I knew how because I knew Brian would do that. I didn't know what he had in mind. There were no plans for it for what he had in mind, but I wanted to do it as absolutely best as I could, as low drag, as efficient as possible. And
carry on that spirit.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so in being able to be in some of these circles with air racers and things like that, I have a whole slew of people that are way smarter than I have, that have tried a whole bunch more things and have done a whole bunch more research than I have. And I've been able to tap some of those knowledge sources to be able to come up with a really cool cooling methodology. And here's Kevin again. Really cool cooling methodology to have plenums for both engines, to have exhaust augmentation for both engines, to design really neat inlets for the cooling system. And the inlet project in and of itself was a huge deal. I made, I think, 15 of them before I was happy with them.
And you have a blog for building all this as well.
Yep.
What is the URL for that one?
So it's Coraggio Aviation. It's kind of a play on my last name.
Coraggio, but with a garage?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, got it. Okay.
And so, unfortunately, with all the things that I'm involved in, you can see where I may not have a lot of time for blogging, so it's been a little bit dormant lately.
But there's some cool stuff on there, because I've followed some of the things you're doing. Like he was just talking about making the cowlings, the moldings and everything, and there's some incredible pictures of the process of building these airplanes. So I'll try to link that down in the description once this is over, so anyone who's watching this next can actually go check it out.
Fantastic.
But I have one more question for you, and we are like 2 minutes till the 1 hour, which I say we try to keep it. So going off experimental aircraft, what would you recommend or say to someone who's looking to build an experimental, any kind of experimental?
So the first thing I would say is get started. If you have the passion and you've spent the time looking at building your own airplane, first do a little bit of soul searching. Ask yourself what your reason to build is. If you're building because you would enjoy the process, you enjoy tinkering, you enjoy creating things with your hands, working with tools and things like that, get started. Get started yesterday. If you're building just to have the airplane to fly, maybe go find a flying one. Or find something that is a small project, nearly done.
Something that maybe fills that flying need while you're...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. In order to be successful with most building projects, you have to really enjoy the build. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of work. And there are some days that you want to go out there and light a match with the whole thing and be done with it. And I can't tell you how many times my Long Easy's name is Betty. I can't tell you how many times I threatened to burn Betty to the ground.
Work or I'm going to burn you to the ground.
Exactly. There are a lot of emotional ups and downs in building an airplane. When you spend an entire week building a part and it comes out and it is not what you need, not what you want, doesn't fit, too big, too small, whatever the case may be, it is infuriating. And then you have to have the discipline to say, okay, I'm not proud of this part. It's not what I need. It goes in the trash or the recycle bin or whatever, or on the trophy wall of things that you've screwed up, of which I have a lot of them.
I've seen some of them.
Yep. And you have to go and do it again. So if that sounds like your cup of tea and something you want to do, get involved, get started. It's a
or help someone who's currently doing it.
Yep.
Get involved. That's why I like coming and trying to help when he's working on his Defiance, because I want to get involved. I want to learn. Granted, I'm not always there because of child obligations.
Right. Yeah, there's never enough time for it.
Yeah, my 5-year-old just is not that helpful around the airplane.
Yeah. Oh, we could give her sharp objects,
Oh, she'll just stab things. But that's actually really, really great advice. What would you say to the perfectionist?
Sometimes good enough is good enough.
Okay.
And I have that problem sometimes. It's really hard to draw that line. Perfection is the enemy of completion. But you also have to realize that you are going to put yourself and other people in this airplane at hopefully 300 miles an hour. And you have to have a level of standards that are safe as well.
Awesome. Well, great answer to that question. And so anyone who is looking to build, like you said, just get started or go help someone. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great way to learn. And if you're on the fence about it, definitely go help someone.
Yes.
Definitely go see. Just if you have access to the airport, go drive around the airport. There's always guys who are working on their planes. They're experimental, building something. Just pop your head in, ask them questions, see if you can help, and see if it's right for you.
There are also some, like the Sport Air workshops, where they come around to different parts of the country and they'll teach you. It's through the EAA. They'll teach you sheet metal and composites and wiring and things like that. Those are also great workshops to go to. And there are all kinds of builders groups online as well that you can start a dialogue and chat with some of the people in builders groups for the types of airplanes that you are interested in flying, or in building rather. And you can start a dialogue with them, and usually or inevitably there's somebody in your local area that would be willing to show you their project and kind of get you involved.
Yeah. Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times it's like, oh, I'm interested in this. And I drive around the airport. Sure enough, there's one and some guy's working on it, and he will talk to you for hours about it.
Yeah, sometimes it's harder to leave than to initiate the conversation.
I've had that problem. I've had that problem. So, well, thank you. I want to thank you, though, seriously, for joining us, sharing your knowledge, not just about the flying, but also about the experimental aircraft. The answer to your last question, absolutely amazing. So,
well, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
So if you guys want to check him out, he also has an Instagram, Ramp Rat Racing.
Correct.
Okay, at Ramp Rat Racing. He's got a lot of awesome pictures of his formation flights, some of the racing that he's done, pictures of his legacy, and when he's just like working on it, tinkering and making it better, faster, stronger, there's pictures of stuff like that. So definitely follow him on Instagram. I think that link is already in the description, so you can check that out right now. One last question here from Dion about t-shirts. I am making some more. They are designed. They are on my desktop. I need to upload them, and they're coming from Teespring right now, and once they go live, you'll be able to order those directly to Ireland from their European warehouse. So anyways, guys, thank you all seriously so much for joining us tonight. It's been an incredible show. Lots of questions, lots of people watching, and so hopefully you can come join us next time. As always, share aviation wherever you can, and we'll see you in the next video. And now I'm going to awkwardly come over here and hit the end stream button. Yes.